Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we have the first video of 2024 on this channel, and I am very hyped for it. Last week we finished off the year with a favorite moments from Critical Role from 2023, so I figured this year would be a good time to start with some predictions. Now, of course, we're going to be making some predictions for this year of Critical Role, so there is some spoilers, potential spoilers, especially if some of these predictions are correct, but before we get into like the actual video itself, I do want to sort of explain, now that I've gotten the spoiler warning out of the way. This is going to be a bingo style sort of predictions thing. We've made a bingo chart or a crits chart, as you can see on the screen now, and it has a bunch of predictions, and we'll talk about them more in depth as we go throughout the video. So I figured it would be best if we start with the C column and ignore all of the circles you're seeing. I have no idea what they are. They weren't there when I first made it. But then when I went back in to sort of get a screenshot of this table, they were just there. And I don't know what they are, and I couldn't get rid of them, and Google is no help. So they're there. Simple as that. So just ignore that. C, we're starting with the C column, and obviously the first one is Chetney goes berserk. Obviously, Chetney is a werewolf, and we, always run the risk of Chetney going insane. He did last year. So I figure it's a good thing to start with, sort of making sure that we have a potential idea that Chetney is still a problem, potentially. They're all ticking time bombs after all. Speaking of ticking time bombs, moving on to Imogen turns on the Bell's Hells. This, in my opinion, is the least likely thing on the entirety of this sheet. There is, a little bit of theory going around with this one that, there's some stuff happening with her, and with recent events of her feeling comfortable within the core of the moon or the core of Ruidus. We're sort of seeing the seeds being planted of a potential turn, but the likelihood isn't 100%. I'd say it's more like 30% she turns, 70% she doesn't, which is still a little high, but it is what it is, and I highly doubt she's going to turn evil. The next prediction is the Mighty Nine return in Campaign 3. We've had a handful of Mighty Nine characters show up in Campaign 3 so far, and now with the Echoes of the Solstice one-shot over with, they can actually make a return. And they can come back now and sort of have a place in the campaign, whether it be to help them with the later on invasion of the Ruidus moon, or whether they're doing something else, who knows. But we could eventually start hearing communications from Bo and Caleb to the party, which is something that Aurum has been trying to do desperately for a long time because he has that sending stone. Moving on to some character death now, or NPC death, is Ludinus Deleth dies. If things go well this year for the Bell's Hells, I can see them somehow killing off Ludinus Deleth, leaving Predathos to being like the big bad, and being the big problem. But again, this is one of the ones that I think is like least likely. He's very much an endgame villain, and the likelihood of him dying this year in Campaign 3, very unlikely. However, going into the overall scope of Critical Role, a new EXU series, or a new EXU just in general, maybe it's a one shot, a two shot, 4 episodes, 8 episodes, I would like to see something new coming from EXU. It's been a long time since we've had something. I don't think they had an EXU last year. The last thing we had was Calamity, which was, I think, in 2022. So it's been a little while since we've had anything from EXU, and giving the cast a bit of a break would be nice for them, I would assume, and letting Matt be a player again would be really cool. Whether it be something like Calamity, where it takes place during the, the Calamity War, I forget what it's called, all of a sudden, the Divergence. No, that's not what it is. Either way, a new something that happens after Calamity or even before Campaign 3 would be really cool. Something like that would be nice to see from Critical Role, because that would give the players and would give Matt a break and would allow them to sort of have new fun, new characters to play with. Maybe the next EXU would be a Daggerheart thing, and we could see Daggerheart sort of make its way into the realm of the YouTube space for Critical Role. But who knows? I think a new EXU would be a lot of fun, so I'm hoping that happens this year. Moving on to the R column, we're starting off with a Mighty Nine one-shot. Mighty Nine have been the one-shot sort of candidates lately. We had 3 technically in the last 2 years, where we had the Uk'otoa two-shot, and then we had the Echoes of the Solstice one-shot. So I very much see, if they have another live show, the Mighty Nine getting that spot yet again. It could be something else, but as of right now, we're going to be talking about the Mighty Nine. I could see this being a few things. First and foremost, it could be something set in the past, very recent past, where they're like still level 20, so we don't have to lose any cool powers they have, and they come together to do something to sort of help people. Maybe the Traveler needs some help. But also, Dark Toe is an interesting location that we haven't messed around with all that much. So seeing Mollymawk return in that aspect would be really cool. And maybe it could be something that's just Luke and Mollymawk. We know that Luke seems to have some sort of relationship with Mollymawk, based on very, very few words that were said in the Echoes of the Solstice one shot. So maybe Luke and Veth go to see Mollymawk, or maybe just Luke goes to see Mollymawk, and we get introduced to a bunch of new cast of characters there on Dark Toe. Maybe you don't have to call it an M9 one shot, it could be a Dark Toe one shot, but I could very well see some sort of M9 related one shot being done again in 2024. They did it in 2022. No, they did two in 2023, I believe. So no. The Ukotaro one shot was 2022. So they did one in 2022 and then they did one in 2023. So I could very well see getting another one this year, and I damn well hope so. Mighty Nine is my favorite group, so I'd love to see that more. The next one is Ashen and Fern start dating. This one is all for you shipping fans out there who like to see that kind of stuff happening. We saw Laudna and Imogen start their relationship, and we're obviously seeing the inklings of Ashen and Fern starting some sort of relationship. So who knows where that goes from here, but I could definitely see it starting in 2024. Moving on to in my opinion, probably the lightest prediction on here, which is a new guest player. New guests show up all the time in Critical Role. They are kind of sparse as time goes on toward the later part, especially if you compare it to Campaign 2. But I do believe that we're likely to see a new guest, potentially someone who is a Ryloran, or someone else who's part of the Ashari groups or part of one of the Vasselheim groups as we move into the dig site to sort of invade the moon and move up toward there. I can definitely see a new guest showing up in any position right now before or even when we get onto the moon, which would be very fascinating and very cool. Moving on again to probably something would be the most devastating prediction out of everything on here, which would be Predathos is fully released. And, obviously this is where the story is heading. The idea that Predathos could be released could happen at any moment. So if that is to happen, and it happens this year, that's dope. If it doesn't happen this year and it happens next year for some reason, that's also cool and dope. But I do think that would be very cool to see Predathos being released, whether it be during the initial invasion that they're doing right now, where they're trying to gather information, or whether it's during the big-ass push they're going to be making with the rest of the groups, the Vasselheim, the Ashari, the Whitestone people, everyone sort of pushing, and then Predathos is released, which to me would be a much cooler image for when they eventually go to animate it. But who knows? I think it'd be really cool to see Predathos released. Part of me really wants him to be released. That way Ludinus isn't the big bad, and that, the build-up for the Predathos villain has been there for a reason. So I'd very much like to see Predathos get released. And the last prediction in column R sort of goes with an earlier prediction in this column, which will be a guest player dies. It seems to happen. It happens a handful of times. It happened to Spurt. It happened to Aggie. So Campaign 3 guest dying. Oh, it happened to Bodor. So another Campaign 3 guest dying is not too far out of the realms of possibility. So who knows? Maybe whoever gets introduced on the moon dies within the first 30 seconds of us meeting them, and we have a new record for the shortest guest. I think that would be hilarious. Moving on to the I column, and starting off with a heavier one, Orum's father or dad being revealed. This could happen in many ways. It could be some sort of vision he sees. Maybe the guest player is Orum's father, or maybe it's a character we've already met in the past. Who knows? But Orum's father has been a running joke in the last couple episodes where they sort of talk about Chetney potentially being the father, and Orum says, if you are my dad, Chetney, you should tell me right now. And, there's been a running joke going on with Orum and his father in the last couple episodes, so I figured an Orum's dad reveal might be on the horizon here. So who knows? Maybe it happens. FCG goes berserk is obviously the next one. Now, this is something that happened super recently, within the last 3 episodes. In fact, happened within the last 2 episodes of Campaign 3. So I could very likely see FCG going berserk and doing some decent damage to the party, but I feel like the party has good control over them lately. So maybe they'll be able to avoid any serious damage that happens when FCG goes berserk. This one sort of goes in tandem with Chetney going insane or berserk based on their abilities and their sort of backstory. So yeah, I definitely think this is very possible. Moving on to another heavy one, which is a potential PC death. Now, realistically, if a PC were to die this year, which is possible, there is no returning for them. They will permanently die. Forever. They will die. Because there is no revival magic working currently. So, if a player character is to die, that's it. They're gone. Until they are able to fix anything that's happening right now, and then they're able to call Pike and be like, hey, we need a more powerful revival spell. the PC will be gone, and I can very well see that they're moving into some dangerous territory with the dig site, and then moving up to the moon. They're going to be in some deep waters here soon, so I can very well see a PC dying on the moon, which will be very bad. No revivals. Moving on, the return of the Crown Keepers. These are characters who are from the original EXU and have been getting referenced a metric fuck ton. This is another one of those, if they decide to do a live show things, I could see this happening, potentially. The issue with that is you don't have most of the main cast there. But I do think a one-shot or a two-shot with the Crown Keepers would also go really well with a new EXU thing. I need to see what's happening with Opal. I need to see what's happening with Dariax. I need to see Dorian again. These characters need to come back in some fashion, and it sucks that they haven't yet. And I think Abria needs to have another chance to sort of DM. Her last one, which was Kymel, wasn't the greatest in my opinion. So I think she should have some sort of redemption and have something that's really good come out. Maybe a one-shot, a really solid one-shot for the Crown Keepers to sort of explain what's happening with them, explain what's going on. I would love to see these characters return, so it's a shame they haven't yet. Moving on to Liliana, Tumlet dies. Liliana is, I think I said Tumlet, right? Tumlet. Liliana is obviously Imogen's mom, so her dying is a possibility. I think it's more likely that she turns against Ludinus, but her dying is also something that's really possible. Orym and Fern have already talked about, something that might need to happen if Imogen turns. Do they need to kill Liliana to make sure Imogen doesn't turn? This is a conversation that's happened a couple of times, so it's very possible for them to do while they're on the moon, especially if they catch her off guard, or if they just end up getting into a situation where it's impossible to prevent her death. It's very possible. I also think it'd be very fulfilling if Imogen were the one to kill off her mother, but I think all at the same time, saving her mother would be huge as well. So, yeah, this one is possible, and, could be very deep story-wise, but I'm also sort of leaning into the same idea that Imogen turning is kind of harder. It's about, 30% to 70% that she'll stay on the good side. I think it's about the same 70%, 30% that Liliana will probably turn to be on the side of her daughter. Moving on to column T, where we have a god dies. This is something that's been looming over this campaign the entire time, ever since episode 50, so not the entire time, but, last year, it's been looming over the entire campaign, so it's about time one of these fuckers die. I mean, they've been sitting there talking, saying, come help us for ages. Meanwhile, nothing seems to be killing them at the moment. So I think one of them needs to die, whichever one it is. I don't know. Anyone can pick one. I think it'd be interesting for any number of them. Maybe let's kill some Dawnfather. He's kind of a dick. So he's been a dick recently, especially in campaign 3. He was kind of cool in campaign 1, but in campaign 3 he kind of made a village his servants, is putting them under his oppressive thumb. So you know what? Fuck him. Let's kill him. Moving on. More Vox Machina returns. So we've already had Pike, Percy, Vex, Vax, and Keyleth. Where is Scanlan and where is Grog? And also, where is Terry? There's a handful of characters who are just missing, and I don't understand why we can't see, Grog or Scanlan. I think those two are missing, and it's just wrong. It just feels wrong that so many of them have shown up, and yet we're missing 2 of them. We're only missing 2. Why? That's so weird. That's so arbitrary to me. Why is it 2 who are missing? And why those 2? Those 2 could be very interesting. I feel like there could be a lot of connection between Grog and Ashton potentially, with their rage and how they're barbarians. They could have some sort of kinship, and I think that'd be very cool. So where the hell is Grog? Give me Grog. And I think he'll like the small people. There's a ton of small people on the Bell's Hells, so Grog would relate to them. He'd be like, hey, I like you. You're like my best friend and my sister. You're cool to me. So come on, I want Grog to show up. Give me at least Grog this year. Next on the list is Delilah taking over Laudna's body. This is a threat. This is legit. If Laudna gets any external power source given to her at any point in time, I could very easily see Delilah taking over and doing some bad shit. And with them being on the moon, we have no idea what sort of external powers are waiting for them. So this could be very bad, and it could go very bad very quick. So, yeah, very interested in seeing what Delilah's going to do with Laudna. and I spelled Laudna wrong on here, which is cool. I will fix that for you guys so you don't have to see that bullshit. Moving on, we have a Vox Machina one-shot. This is the other potential that I think if they're going to do anything, it's going to be a sort of flashback to before Campaign 2 even, where the Vox Machina crew finally get to do some sort of one-shot. It has been fucking ages since there's been a Vox Machina one-shot. Daniel's Closet was happening, like, they did the live shot for that, or live show, not live show. They did the one-shot for that while I was catching up with Campaign 2, which is where I started. So I watched Campaign 2 first, and while I was catching up to Campaign 2, I watched Dalen's Closet just because it was happening. It was something that was live that wasn't something that was going to affect my current campaign that I was watching. So it has been that long, and that was before COVID. So it's been that long since before we've seen them. Like, it has been ages since we've seen Vox Machina in their prime. I'd very much like to see the Vox Machina crew come back. Moving on to the final prediction in column T, and that is FCG gets a divine intervention. I think this is the literal combination of FCG's character to get his god or their god to help them in such a way to where it like basically proves that the gods are worth having around would be massive for this character. And while the percentage is low, I'm pretty sure they're only level 11 or level 12, so they have to roll below that on a percentile dice, and it's possible. It happened like 6 times in Campaign 2. It has yet to happen in Campaign 3, but he's only just received such an ability. So I would very much love to see this happen. I feel like this, an intervention. An intervention is a thing a therapist would start. So I feel like that's something FCG needs. An intervention. He needs to pull off an FCG divine intervention, and I think that would be really cool. And finally, moving on to our last column S, starting off with Campaign 3 ends. Now, this is possible. I'd say it's about 50-50 if this campaign ends this year. But I have a couple of reasons as to why it won't, but I have a couple of reasons to why it will. First of all, we should get somewhere in the neighborhood of like 35 to 37 episodes a year because they take the last week off of every year, and there's 52 weeks in the year, so you just minus 12 off that. And you should get the right number roughly, but there's also other things like one-shots that'll pop up, holidays that pop up, potential EXU campaigns that'll pop up. So it's somewhere between like 30 to 37, I feel like is the right number. And with that, with 35, which was what we're going to go off of, I'm pretty sure we end up with where we are right now, roughly 118 episodes. So that is just a little bit longer than Campaign 1 and is way shorter than Campaign 2. Campaign 2 went 141 episodes long, so I could see this campaign ending somewhere in between that, which 118 would technically be, but at the same time, I also don't think that that's necessarily true. I think this campaign is going to go a little bit longer than that. I think this campaign is going to probably reach the 130s and go with that, because right now they're only level like 11 or 12, and Campaign 2 ended with them being level 16. Yes, level 16 was the literal last episode, but they still ended at level 16, so we are at least 4 levels off of that, and I very much see that being more of a level to take on Predathos. So I could very well see another year after this year being pulled out of this campaign, not to mention finishing Campaign 3 on the 10-year anniversary of Critical Role makes a lot more sense than finishing on the 9th year anniversary, unless you believe that they're going to start moving into the Daggerheart games, and that Daggerheart will become the main Critical Role campaign. So then, theoretically, doing a 10-year on the beginning of Daggerheart wouldn't be wrong, but technically Daggerheart comes out this year. So who knows? It's kind of hard to tell where it's going to land, if it's going to end this year or not. So that's, this one's here. Might as well predict that it's going to end this year. Who knows? I personally don't think it's going to. So that's just me. Moving on to Odahan Thule dies. We had to round out the sort of villains that we know of sort of being a problem still dying off, or almost rounded out. It would be nice for Odahan Thule to die, and I think she's going to actually be the first one to die out of any of them, because Odahan Thule, from last we heard, is guarding the dig site, which is where the campaign is currently, having a sort of siege moment on. So I very well see Odahan Thule being potentially cut down in this moment very soon, so who knows? I would love to see her die. It would be comeuppance. Moving on to Fern kills Lord Zethuda. We learned about Lord Zethuda being her father, And, you know, it would be very satisfying for her to kill off Lord Zathuda, whether he's at the dig site as well, whether he's on the moon, or whether they return from the moon at some point and he is a problem when they come back. Either way, I would very much like to see Shadow Lord or Sorrow Lord Zathuda being killed off by Fern, because, you know, he's just a dick. He's just an asshole. So I'd very much love to see him getting killed off. Moving on to a former PC death. I think this is very possible, especially with a handful of former PCs being, you know, putting their lives on the line, putting their necks out right now. I could see a member of the Mighty Nine or the member of Vox Machina in some way getting killed off. It could also be like a Darrington Brigade character getting killed off who decides to show up. They better not kill off Owlbear, I swear to God. But overall, I can see one of the Vox Machina or one of the Mighty Nine characters dying off in some sort of fashion to sort of allow the Mighty Nine to escape in some sort of way if they need to. If they need to pull out from the moon and one of them, particularly like maybe Bo, goes up and sacrifices herself, I could see it happening. Who knows? But I would rather this not happen because obviously we all like our former PCs. We don't want them to die, but have to make some predictions. And lastly, a guest player returns. Specifically, in my opinion, I have two, or I actually have a handful who could come back. First of all, Deanna, Frida, and Prism could all come back at any moment in time because they're currently doing some work in Vasselheim, and if they decided to hitch onto a ship and come and join the dig site sort of attack, they can. They can even join the dig site invasion later on when it's a full scope one. So I could very well see those three returning at any point in time. The next one, obviously, is Dorian. Dorian has to come back. He has to. He started the campaign. I want him to finish the campaign with them. I feel like that would be like the most perfect way to end the campaign, which would be for Dorian Storm to come back and be with them in the final fight and then sort of get his own epilogue. He's a character who started with them. He needs to finish with them, and I would love to see him come back in some sort of fashion before the end of this year or even just before the end of Campaign 3. So I'd like to see this character come back, please. Also, there's another one who I think would be a very good fit to come back, and that is Yu or Erika Ishii. Ishii? I forget how to say her last name. But Yu, or Dusk, should come back. This is a character who sort of left the door open to constantly be following the party, and with them going to the Fey Realm, with them potentially interacting with Zathuda, I could very well see Yu coming back in some form or fashion, whether it be to join them or whether it be to stab them in the back yet again. Who knows? I would just like to see her come back. I think Yu is a character who has a lot more room to grow on the fan base, and I damn well want to see her come back and sort of get the praise the character deserves. So that's just me. I would like to see those guest players come back. We could even see former guest players come back from previous campaigns. If Shikasta is still alive, I could see him coming back at any point in time. Rini could come back. Keg. I would like to see anyone at this point return who would be a cool guest character. The only ones that we won't be able to get are the obvious dead ones. Aggie can't come back. Spurt can't come back. So a handful of them can't come back, but I would like to see someone show up, even if Matt is just NPCing them. You know, that'd be cool too, to see a handful of these characters who are from previous campaigns come back in some form or way. That would be cool as well. So, guest players coming back is the last bingo or crits card prediction. And there you have it, my predictions bingo crits sheet, crits bingo card for 2024, and technically moving on forward, because some of these won't get done. There's no way all of them get done, but I do think this is going to be a fun little thing to add to the recaps. As things happen, I will bring this up and I will highlight them, and we will be able to fill out the bingo card as the year goes on, and hopefully we get a bingo or a crit, as this says, or crits as we go on. And I think it'd be a lot of fun to do and sort of be on the lookout for, which is what this is all about, being on the lookout for predictions that we've made moving forward. And I think that's what this is going to be a lot of fun for. I think we're going to have a good time sort of waiting for each thing to sort of pop up or be introduced or be added to the campaign. Let me know what predictions you think I've missed, what ones you came up with, what ones you would add later on as we go on, because maybe if we get a crit as we go throughout the year, we'll remove them and then we'll add new ones on, which will be a lot of fun as well. So let me know what you think I missed. Which ones do you think will come true out of any of them? Do you think we're going to get a crits this year? So yeah, with that, I will see you guys on Friday for whatever video I make next. Peace.